So it's an absolutely atrocious day out today, so it's going to be a good old-fashioned driving style of video. So just the other day actually marks the 1-year anniversary of me having this Crown Victoria. I bought this Crown Victoria on August 14th of 2018, and it's 2019 now, and I thought I'd kind of go over 1 year of ownership of this Crown Vic. So I'm going to go over a few things that I absolutely love about this car still, and then I'm going to go over a few things that I found that I really actually don't like about this car, which, you know, there's a few of them. And then I'll also go over some things that, you know, are like some things that I knew I was getting into that aren't a problem, but also aren't tremendously amazing either, that aren't great. So the good, starting with the first thing, which is the reliability. This car has been dead reliable. I haven't had to put any money into it besides regular maintenance. The only thing that might be kind of somewhat irregular would be the brakes. But I mean, after 100 and just about 50,000 kilometers, you need new brakes. So I decided to replace the front brakes. I still have to replace the rear brakes, I just haven't gotten a chance to. Oil changes, I've been doing every 10,000 kilometers with synthetic oil, completely normal. Yeah, absolutely nothing unexpected. Next thing, these cars are still super, super comfy. I stand by that this is probably one of the most comfortable cars I've ever ridden in. The seats are designed so that they're big and they're comfy. They go to the end of your legs, like to the end of your thighs, so they just hold you in place really comfortably. Like, they're not sports seats by any means. There's no bolstering whatsoever. They're just designed to be super, super comfy, which they've done. And the third good thing that I can think of is the huge trunk. It still has a gigantic trunk, and that has come in handy so many times. A friend of mine and I actually decided to go out looking at some stars because there was a meteor shower a little while ago. I had 2 telescope tripods in the trunk, along with 2 of those like snazzy zero gravity chairs. I had the 2 telescope bodies in the back seat, plus some snacks, blankets, coats, and him beside me, and he had some stuff that he had to take as well. So the sheer size of this car for hauling stuff, for taking stuff, is still impressive for a car. Which leads me to my next point, which is kind of a bad point. While the space, the sheer amount of space is great, the use of it isn't tremendously amazing. The door pockets are tiny. I can't fit a bottle of water in there, which is really crappy. The most I could maybe fit in there is a book, like a few magazines or something like that. I always like to have lots of water in my car, and the best thing I can do is put a case behind my seat, because I have 2 cup holders in the front, which most vehicles have, you know, maybe 2, potentially 4 cup holders in the front with some added space, so you can set a cup in there or something like that, set like a half-drank coffee or something like that. Whereas this car, it only has the 2 cup holders, which I really dislike. Another thing that I really don't like about this car is in the center, it has 2 armrests. That could be a center console. In the Lincoln Town Car, it has a center console that can fold up, plus your 2 moving chairs, plus a bench seat. Like, in a Lincoln Town Car, you can move the passenger and the driver's seat individually while still maintaining a 3rd passenger in the front. So, while still having a center console, which would be really nice in a Crown Vic, but unfortunately it doesn't. It's just got the 2 armrests. The back seat is also somewhat tight. Like, especially for a big car like this, you'd expect a little bit more legroom in the back. But to have more legroom, you'd have to buy the longer wheelbase version, which I think is kind of sad. I would have rather sacrificed a little bit of the the shelf space on the trunk to rear legroom for if I have extra passengers or something like that. The next kind of bad thing is this car is really not tremendously amazing in the winter. It gets stuck fairly easily. So far I've gotten stuck twice in this car. I don't like do any crazy off-roading, but I went out with a friend the one night after it had rained, and we got on a back road that was fairly clay, like it had lots of clay on it, and we got the car stuck. So if I would have had something like a limited slip differential, I probably could have gotten out, because it was just one wheel that had no traction. Of course, it was the rear wheel, one of the rear wheels. Whereas if I had a limited slip differential, I would have at least had one wheel that had traction, but unfortunately I didn't. And the final bad thing is the paint. Unfortunately, a little bit, well actually quite a bit of the roof paint is starting to peel, starting to flake off, and it's not looking tremendously good, which I think is really, really sad, because when I bought this car, the paint was in really, really good condition. I think I heard somewhere that this car, like there was a few years of Crown Victorias that had paint defects, where the paint didn't bond to the primer properly. But, I mean, I kind of expected that, so I'm either going to take a rattle can and try and touch it up somewhat, or just get the roof repainted or something like that. Kilometers an hour. So this car has a 4.6 liter V8, which sounds impressive, but it only makes 230 horsepower, which for me, I'm okay with. I don't need a whole bunch of horsepower. I don't need to be super, super fast. Combined with the body on frame construction and the weight of this car, it doesn't have a tremendous amount of get up and go. It has enough for me though. Like trying to merge in the city or something like that is fine by me. I've got enough to be able to get up to speed well before the merging lane. If I have to pass someone on a 2-lane highway and I have to do it somewhat quickly, I can do that just fine. But by modern standards, for a 4.6 liter V8, it has very little horsepower and very little like get up and go. It's the best way I can describe it. Another thing is the fuel economy, which I knew getting into it wasn't going to be great, and well, still isn't. I'm not a very economical driver though. I do like to go a little bit above the speed limit and all that. So on average I get about 20 miles per gallon in this car. If I'm purely driving on the highway, sometimes I'll get closer to like maybe 23, 24. But that's just another thing that's kind of neutral that I knew getting into it wasn't going to be good, and I totally expected. Anyways, that is 1 year of ownership, 3 things I like, and 3 things I somewhat dislike about my Crown Victoria. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have a good one. Kilometers an hour.
1
kilometers an hour. Oops.